Hello, this is Jer. I'm playing Oxygen Not Included, and this is my second episode of this playthrough. So just setting up this clock over here to open this door whenever Hugger is on break. The idea is I'm going to trap them in that room until all eggs are filled, or they're supposed to be on break. So that's the idea there. And in the room above, that's where eggs are stored. Of course, those eggs will ultimately hatch. I've got some pipsqueaks. They're going to be transported into the stables for pips. So I'll be able to get more pip eggs when they're in there. Okay, so the big strategy difference here in this playthrough for me is taking advantage of the hatches that I didn't the last time and the sweetles. So hopefully you'll start to see how that plays out in this video. So just going to do some additional research. I don't know if there's anything of priority, but gas pipe actually, because I need to start to deal with that hydrogen that's building up from the electrolyzer. And I actually, not only will I have a system to deal with it, but I'll actually get a little bit of power. Going after the super sustainable achievement, which means I can't burn things like coal and natural gas, but hydrogen is not considered, I guess, one of the bad fuels, or it is a super sustainable type of thing. But anyway, I can actually burn hydrogen while maintaining the ability to potentially get the super sustainable achievement. So that's going to give me more power in addition to dealing with the hydrogen. All right, so seeds are bought some seeds in this area just because I want them out of the pip stables. But ultimately, this area here is just for storing eggs. So everyone is going in there, but I'm gonna make this such that Hugger is trapped in there. What I'm going to do is have that setup run so I can select the eggs I want to process every day. Okay, so now that I've got that research for that, I want to make sure I've got all the pieces for burning hydrogen. And just doing some research on the metal refinery. You'll see that hopefully in this episode as well. All right, so I'm going to get some bins that's going to have the arbor acorn, because I want those. Every pip stable needs to have at least one of those arbor trees. That's what the pips eat, and that's going to allow them to not starve, because I want them to survive to continually lay eggs. Sweater, who am I going to give that to? How about scientist? Whatever. All right, so now what I need to do is find as many pips or many critters as I can. So I'm digging out access to more sweetles. And I'm going to set this system here to lay or have eggs dropped off. And the really cool thing about this, I didn't think about this before, but I actually don't need much in the way of automation to remove eggs, at least in this world, because I have a drop-off point, or the conveyor loader, set for eggs at a high priority. The moment any of the critters, the hatches or sweetles, lay eggs, they'll be taken out of that hatch and actually brought to this world. All right, so speaking of the home world, I need to deal with hydrogen, as I mentioned. So let's start digging out some stuff. Let's get rid of the plants, and then I'll dig out a spot for the hydrogen generator as well as some automation. So the critter that I have in their hatch is happy now, but if they get too many eggs, they'll not be happy. So actually, what I'm going to do here, in addition to have eggs dropped off, I'm actually going to specifically have that dropped off next to the hatchery, just for convenience purposes. That way I don't have to do any manual work into getting eggs there. But anyway, the first few eggs have been dropped off in this world, and they're going to be dropped off at that. So what I'm going to have to do is manually get my dupes to carry them into this bin that's next to the hatchery. Eventually, once this conveyor line is built, I won't have to do that manual work anymore. But for the meantime, I'll have to set that up so that my dupes bring eggs that come from the other world over here, and Hugger, which ultimately is going to be the only one that can go in this room, can process those eggs, adding the lullaby effect, meaning that they hatch faster than usual. And that's going to be particularly important for the Carnivore achievement and getting food from those eggs and filling the hatchery, or the stable for the hatches. In this world, I'm a little bit stressed with food. I've got 2 dupes and 1,600 calories, so not even enough for the 2 of them. and I'll have to find out a source for that. Meanwhile, I want to continue my expedition of getting additional Sweetles from this world so I can get the ultimately meat from them once they hatch. But this means I'm going to have to spend quite a bit of time actually out of algae as well, so digging out some of that. Alright, so in this world I am processing every different type of egg that I can get, except for the light bugs, or the shine bugs, because they don't produce any meat, so I'll ignore those. But any other critter egg, I want to run through this system if it doesn't have the lullaby effect. And I've got, still have some eggs at the bottom, so I'll have to get my dupes to bring those back up in this bin at a high priority. This is going to be an annoying process to look after until that, actually it looks like that chute is in existence now, so that's a good thing. Okay. So the egg storage is up here. That's where the eggs are going to hatch. And I'm going to search for any eggs that need to be processed or have the lullaby effect or that run out. So we're on cycle 30. Cycle 33 which is coming up, that's going to be a third of the way of getting these, not super sustainable, the Carnivore achievement, which is going to run out of cycle 100. And I have not consumed, I don't think I've consumed any bit of meat, which is okay, that's normal. Because I need to focus on setting or filling the stables before I need to start consuming meat. But the first Sweetles that get here, that's a different story. Because I don't plan to have any Sweetle stables over in this world. So any Sweetle eggs that arrive are, as soon as they hatch, are fair game for meat. And hopefully be able to start consuming meat early on, because I need to, as I mentioned, get that 400,000 calories. That's pretty much my focus. It's a very difficult thing to do. But because I'll have an early meat source, that's just going to allow me to start to consume more meat before I get to the point where my stables are set up and then I get meat from the pips and hatches. Alright, so I do have one disadvantage, or one thing to worry about rather. In the other world, it's a great system, but it doesn't replenish itself. So the Sweetles and hatches, well, the moment eggs are laid, they're taken out of the world, so there'll never be any new hatches or Sweetles. And I think that's fine. And the reason I think that's fine is because my goal is just to jumpstart the system over here with a number of meat. So once, hopefully, and we'll see how this pans out in this episode, maybe the next episode, if I'm correct in thinking that I don't need to worry about replenishing the Sweetles, don't need to be worried about replenishing the hatches when they run out, it's fine. Hopefully by that point I'll have all the hatches or the stables filled and consuming enough meat from this world. But that's the theory. I'll test this out. So getting some mush fry created in that electrical grill. Hopefully I won't be using that very often because I want to focus on eating meat for the Carnivore achievements. So just notice that got a few more, or actually a Sweetle head has hatched there. They can actually be hunted or attacked. And that might be my first little bit of meat that gets consumed. Actually, let's select barbecue. Make sure that meat gets converted to barbecue, because that's going to increase the number of calories. I'll create a light here for cook to be able to see what they're doing when they're cooking. So that'll increase their speed a little bit, I believe. And I can see that I've got a number of eggs that don't have the lullaby effect. So I'm going to mark those to be dropped down the world, as well as I've got some eggs within the pips. And they've got the wrong thing planted there. So I'm going to have those eggs brought out of those rooms so that they can continue to lay new ones. I've got that drop-off point for the pips set up so that only 2 of the pips go in there at the moment. Once I have automation to automate the process of removing eggs, I'm going to increase that to 3. But that's going to buy me time. So if 2 of the pips, if one of them lays an egg, that's 3 total. They're still happy. They don't start to slow down until another egg arrives. So hopefully I'm able to remove that egg before that happens. But anyway. So some Sweetle eggs have arrived from the other world. That's exciting. I also have additional hatch eggs. and the regular pip eggs that I get from this world. So I'm thinking between the sweetle eggs that I'm going to be able to consume for meat very early on, and the additional hatches, just maybe this will be an easy process of getting the carnivore achievement, because it was not in the last episode. I did get it in the last episode, but I believe it was pretty close, and I had to count my calories, I had to count the cycles and add everything up and make sure it was all going to work. I'm hoping this will be a ride. What am I thinking? A ride in the park. It'll be easy, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, because I've got the ability to create a nature reserve. I'll need to have at least 4 wild plants for that, and I've got that in here, and I've got the same setup in the other world, and I'm going to have a pass-through zone such that I'm forcing my dupes to go through it with the help of the ladder. And so over here I've got the mess hall, or actually great hall, I believe at this point, and the latrine. So they're going to use that every day, but they're going to pass through the nature reserve, getting a +6 morale bonus. So they'll get that on both of these bases, which is a good thing, because with more morale, they sometimes will get more productive, and they certainly won't be as likely to get stressed out, particularly once I start assigning them with additional skills. I've noticed that I've got a little bit of polluted oxygen in this area. That's because I started this area off with polluted water. I moved that out, but I can deal with that later on. So Hugger is now processing all these sweetle eggs that I've gotten from the other world. Quite a few of them, actually, because there's quite a few sweetles in that world. And that is the big components why I think this is going to work out nicely, is because I've got so many sweetles that's going to produce quite a bit of meat early on, but also, more importantly, the extra hatches is going to fill up the stables that are over here quicker than it has previously. And that's just going to allow me, so the moment I find one of those sweetles, I'll convert that to meat. The hatches, on the other hand, will be wrangled and brought to the stable that's just to the left, and then look to process eggs whenever I can. And that's just going to allow those eggs to hatch quicker, producing at least either a meat in the case of the sweetles, or places to fill the hatches, the hatch stable or the pip stable. And once those other stables get created, the hatches and the pips, then I'll actually be able to just rely on those, and the sweetles won't even be needed anymore. And hopefully that's going to happen, as I mentioned before, the sweetles expire. But the other thing is I'm going to make sure those pips plant the right plant, which is the arbitrary, in there. So manual process, which is a pain, but it is what it is. And it won't be forever. Eventually I'm going to give them lights, so hopefully they can hug a little bit faster, not wasting as much time. And that's just going to allow me to go through more eggs in any cycle. Eventually it's going to get to the point where I've got so many eggs that they won't be able to deal with all of them. That's okay, as long as I'm able to get through quite a few of them. That'll allow me to accelerate the process for generating enough meat. They'll probably even get to the point where I'll have so many critters I won't even have to run this process. But we're a long way from that. I'm just getting started with this system. Really, I'm just making the focus now about getting the carnivore achievement comfortably. And then once I have that, then make plans for an alternate food source such that I can improve the quality of food, which is actually pretty good already as barbecue meat, but I'll be able to improve it a little bit. But more importantly, is removing the manual process out of this system, because I'm not going to want to do this forever. And the last playthrough, I think I was on cycle 50, and I was still using, I might not have been using the incubator so much, which was a good thing, but I still had to manually attack critters every so often to get barbecue meat ultimately from that system, and that was annoying. So my goal this time is to come up with some strategies once this is a carnivore achievement is done, to grow some other things. Let's have a quick look here at how much meat I've consumed for the Carnivore achievement. Almost 8,000 calories. Not a lot. We've just started, and that's okay. But I believe to typically start around cycle 45 to 50. I'm not even on, just about coming up to cycle 35, and I've already eaten almost 8,000 calories. So I'm way ahead of where I was before. So I think this will be done quite comfortably certainly compared to my last playthrough or two. Okay, so over here I'm going to have eight Sweetles dropped off in each of those spots. I'm going to start to wrangle a few more of them such that I've got 16 between the two, and they'll just start producing a lot of Sweetle eggs. I've got the rancher over, actually one of the Sweetles is stuck there in the door. Make sure they can make it out. But the rancher that's over here will attend to them. That's going to increase the likeliness of getting eggs, and that'll be sent to the homeworld. Now, I'm also going to use the water source that I have here. I have quite a bit of water here, and not a lot of water in the other world. There's going to be a lot of water geysers there, but not water that's ready. So I'm going to actually start pumping that to this world over here. All right, so just realize there's a need, or at least the way I want to have this set up, for a gas reservoir to deal with the hydrogen system. So we'll just wait for that research to go through, and then I'll start to build the system that's going to deal with that. So there's two things I'm going to want to do. One is deal with the hydrogen that's on top of the base. The other is the carbon dioxide on the bottom of the base. I would say the hydrogen is the priority for the moment because that electrolyzer is producing quite a bit of hydrogen, which I could, in theory, just crack open the top of the base and let it run out, fly out, but I can convert it to energy, which is a far more productive way. So I'm going to let it accumulate, even though when the dupes are up there, they can't breathe and kind of have to go up and build a few things in that hydrogen area, but that's just for the short term. So that's going to allow me to start to produce some power from that overall from that system. So just doing a room check here. I've got all the rooms that I want, including this new nature reserve. I'm doing a check in the other world as well, so that is set. Okay, so what I'm doing, and this is a really nice thing with this setup, is because I don't have a refrigerator or a system for freezing food at this point. I'll have that later on. But at this point, I can pick and choose when I want to have the critters turn to meat. And they'll just run around and be converted to meat when they're needed. It means it's a manual process, but this is for the short term until I get a deep freeze and all that type of thing. Because if I were to just hunt all the critters there, and don't have that many, but let's imagine I had 20 or more, if I were to attack them all and get them all cooked, some of them, or quite a few of them, would actually, the barbecue meat would actually expire, being wasted. And that's not what we want. It's not going to help us if we have wasted food. So it's quite nice, actually, in the short term, in the beginning of the game, to have a system to be able to say, okay, you know what, I've got, let's say, four dupes here. I just want 4,000 calories, so I just need to attack a single critter. So a single critter, depending on what it is, if one of the hatches, for instance, will give you 3,200 calories, half for the Sweetle. So I'll need to actually have two Sweetles attacked, and that'll be cooked into 4,000 calories, enough for my 4 dupes, because each of the dupe is going to consume 1,000 calories, assuming it doesn't have the negative trait, which consumes more. But I've certainly made sure to never accept dupes that have that trait, or the trait that allows them to consume more oxygen than normal. Okay, so over here doing the same thing I've done. I've noticed that I've got the grub egg there. I'm going to treat that the same as a Sweetles, meaning the moment that thing is born, it will be converted to meat. I believe that actually has the same amount as the hatches, so I actually get more meat from that if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, so I've got a big setup over here. I've got a gas reservoir. That's where the pump is going to push hydrogen into it. That's going to first go through this checker to figure out if it's hydrogen. If it is, it's going to go through that gas shutoff into that gas reservoir. Otherwise, it'll be pushed underneath. And then that will ultimately feed into that hydrogen generator, producing some power. And I even have a smart battery to tell when that should operate. So that'll operate when you're either in need of power, I'm going to put that setting 99, or when the gas reservoir is starting to get too full, in which case it'll start to burn hydrogen even when it's not needed, which is okay, because I'd rather have the hydrogen gone, because my troops won't be able to breathe in it, especially if it accumulates too much. But whenever I can, it'll start to produce power when it's needed. So it's a decent setup. The other thing is I don't have a filter, because I've got the system for that gas shut off, and I've got more further details of how I've done that in previous episodes, so I won't go over that in too much detail. It's pretty much the same setup that I have in the past. And the same thing with this incubator. Same setup, automated door, so that the dupe or hugger that's in there can be let out when all the eggs have been processed, and not until that's the case, or that they're supposed to be on their break period. So the only annoying thing I find about this is, because I have all these different types of eggs, I've got the Sweetles, I've got the Grub, I've got Pips, I've got Hatches, and the Hatches have different types. You have to keep going through all the different types of eggs that are there. But it's not going to be forever. I'm going to get the Carnivore achievement. I'm going to comfortably get it, at least compared to the previous ones. As I keep saying, I'm really hoping that is going to be the case. I would say that is if your goal is to get all the achievements. And that is, I actually just have to disable, so automation isn't on that pump there. So it's just kind of wasting power. But if your goal is to get the Carnivore achievement, or actually all achievements, or at least in particular, as I said, the Carnivore achievement, that is going to be a painful thing, particularly if it's your first time going through it. So using some of these tricks, like the incubator set up, and creating the hatches, or stables rather, right away, and then getting as many critters as you can as quick as possible, and putting those into the stables. As long as you do those things, then you should be good. Otherwise, it's very dicey as to whether you're going to make it or not. But I think I've finally played this game enough times that I can say that this achievement will be easy. Well, after this many attempts at experimenting, trying to figure this out. Okay, so there is the smart battery set up with that. So that's just going to allow me to generate the power when I need it, unless, of course, I've got an excessive amount of hydrogen that's inside that gas reservoir. Every day doing this, manually cycling. This is probably the worst thing about this particular achievement. It's a great setup. It doesn't waste much power, because this incubator doesn't run all the time. It only runs for a short period of time for every egg, every day. But you've got to manually do it every single cycle. You've got to select the eggs to go through them. It's particularly painful when you've got like 20 or plus eggs to go through. But it's not forever, and in addition to getting the achievement, it's also a food source. So I'm kind of doing two things at once when you think about it. All right, so now I'm starting to, if you noticed, I converted my wires from the regular wire to the heavy watt wire. And I'm going to do that everywhere, including the stables. Actually, the reason I'm bringing those into the stables is because they're ultimately going to have automation to take eggs out. Now, at this point, be very careful. I've been burned on this. I think in the last playthrough and a few other times, where you'll just have one hidden tile, or one hidden, wire, regular wire, go through your circuit. And whatever material that is made out of, that is going to be wasted, because in this case, it's made out of aluminum ore. And if I had if I had one little piece or a couple pieces of regular wire, that they'll be burnt out, and my dupes will continually be replacing it. So I'm going to be very cautious. So you notice that I've got those between the doors, removing those completely. And then now, actually, I should have removed the wrong doors. I should have done that in the one above. But anyway, I'm going to have the joint plates brought up above. Again, remove those regular wires. It's okay at the moment because, well, actually, I now have well, I just have one manual generator giving me 400 units, and the hydrogen, which is 600, so that's 1,000. I should be fine with that. I'm not consuming much power anyways. But when I do get to that point, if I don't make sure I get rid of that wire, it could be quite painful. Choosing between the Pacus and the Pipsqueak. Oh, I could have surf and turf with that, but no, let's not get it. Let's get another Pipsqueak. This is going to fill up my pip stables a little bit quicker, which is nice because that'll allow me to get meat from that in the case that the Sweetles are out. So being very meticulous at this point to get rid of the little bit of regular wires that might be around. Haven't gotten rid of them all yet. And starting the process, I'm bringing in heavy watt wire. Let's get rid of those. Don't want those laying around. And I think we've got it all. So there are no more regular wires within this particular circuit anyways. And that's just going to prevent some of this aluminum ore. I'm happy about the fact that I chose a base that is metal rich, because there's quite a bit of metal ore. I want to do a lot of things involving metal ore, so that's a very nice thing to have. So I'm at the point where I guess I could start to search for more Sweetles. I don't have a lot to do other than attend to the stables. And then, of course, carry eggs back over here. Actually, a little bit of food source there. Might as well have that harvested. All right. So here's my plan for the hatches. This may take action over the next few episodes, but I'm going to feed those hatches sedimentary rock. You notice that I've actually cleaned their rooms so they don't have any material in it, so they're forced to eat the sedimentary rock. That's going to increase their chances of laying stone hatches. And then the stone hatches, I'll start to get them to terrible thing, but I'll actually get them to eat metal ore, and most likely the aluminum. And that's going to increase their chances of getting smooth hatches. And the smooth hatches will consume the ore and actually give you back metal ore, metal aluminum. In that case, if you're giving it aluminum ore. And that's going to give me, ultimately, the down the hatch achievement. So that's my plan. So I'll have multiple stables. I'll probably have a regular hatch stable, a stone hatch stable, and then the smooth hatch stable. And in the process of that, also get a little bit of meat from that overall system. So now I'm building some pipes here. That's going to carry water that I'm getting from the other world, making sure that's insulated because that's a cold zone. And also now have a setup for metal, the metal refinery. And that needs water cooling. So this actually works quite well. I've got negative 150 degree temperatures in this cold zone. I've got vacuum protecting that from going to the base, so that's quite good. But that's interacting with water that's on the bottom. Ultimately, that's going to freeze that water. But my plan is to run this refinery, and that's going to generate some metal that I need. I need some automation, and that'll allow me to cool off, or not cool off, that's going to heat up the water. And that's down there. And because that water is next to this really cold zone, that'll sort of maintain itself for a while. Actually, negative 150 degrees, that's much colder than I've had to deal with in the past. So that actually might maintain itself for a lot longer. Now, the efficiency of this is 100%, meaning that the amount of metal ore goes into that refinery is the same thing you get out. When you put it through the rock crusher, you lose half of it as sand. When it goes through the hatches, or the smooth hatches, it's 75% efficient, meaning 25% is lost. So I have to have a water in and water out. I'm going to have insulated pipes for that, because that is in a freezing zone. So some of that water, or salt water, hopefully, will go up into that pipes, and insulation will make it less likely to freeze. I'm also going to have a system to drop the water back out of the pipes, drain it out of the pipes. Do that later on. But the idea is when I'm operating the metal refinery, the pump can be on, push water in, and it'll drain it out. And when I don't need the refinery anymore, I can turn the pump off, and I'll have a separate switch with a pump water or liquid shut off to be able to drain it out of that system, just so that it doesn't freeze inside the pipes. Because when water or whatever liquid, if it were to turn into a solid when it's in a pipe, a little bit of extra food there, that's nice. When it turns into a solid, it breaks the pipe, meaning that you need more material. Okay, so in order to run that, I'm going to need more power. So I'm going to have more manual generators. And because everything is heavy watt wire, that's going to be okay. Certainly do not run this machine, this metal refinery, if you're still on the regular circuitry. If you have not upgraded to the metal refinery, this is not the time to turn this machine on. But I'm at the point where I need some metal anyways, and I want to get onto the process of using the metal refinery as soon as possible, because, well, just for the reason that I mentioned, otherwise I'm just wasting half of the aluminum ore every time I use the rock crusher. And I want quite a few automation pieces which requires metal, and that is going to be the auto sweepers and the conveyor loaders. In particular, I'm talking about putting them inside the stables to take eggs out. I mentioned this probably several times before, but eggs inside the stables, bad. You don't want eggs inside the stables, because what that's going to do is just make the critters that are in there feel crammed, and they won't lay as many eggs as quickly. But what I'm going to also have that do is not just take them simply out of the stable, but drop them right next to the incubator, right on top of that scale, indicating to me that I need to send Hugger in to do that. So now you can see that I've got the first few auto sweepers and the conveyor loaders be put in, and I might as well put them in as pairs. So I'd rather have, for instance, one operational rather than have every single room have a sweeper but no loader, so that it doesn't do anything. I'd rather have one or two stables that have them, so at least those ones are automated. And then once I've got enough metal, I'll be able to complete the others in time. So things are looking pretty decent. We're on cycle 45. I have consumed a little bit more meat from the Sweetles that have arrived. Not consumed. What is wrong with me? Any meat from the hatches or pips. And the reason for that is because they are going to the stable. So I have a conveyor line that's dropping it off there. So that's the eggs that they'll be. Oh, I've got 4 pips in there. How'd that? Oh, that may have happened when I was doing the electrical wire changing and destroying one of the tiles. Those sneaky pips that go in between the rooms. But yeah, I want to have a maximum of 3. And now that I've got, once this is constructed anyway, I'll have an automated system for removing those eggs. I can actually have up to 3 pips in there comfortably, because the moment they lay an egg, that automation system will take it out, and then they'll not be cramped anymore, and increase their chances continually of laying more eggs. All right, so I've got an egg inside that. Oh, I think I even see a stone hatch egg. That's because I've given them the sedimentary rock. But this system also, or that staple also, very much needs a system to remove eggs. So I'm actually going to get quite a bit of meat from those hatches, because each one that you hunt gives you twice the amount of meat than the pips, 3,200, and if you cook that, that's 4,000. So each one of them can feed 4 dupes once it hatches, of course. So it means I have to send it through the incubator. But as I mentioned, I don't want to do that until I've got at least 8 hatches in there. And as I start to get stone hatches, I'm going to have to build another stable, probably to the left of that current hatch stable. That's where the stone hatches will be, and eventually smooth hatches on the left of that, if there's room. All right, so more metal is needed. So I've got a refinery set up for that, and because I've got that really hot or really cold temperatures at the bottom of this world, I'm not so concerned about this. I've never had. I've no. Well, I shouldn't say that. In a couple of worlds, I had the world trait where you had the freezing zones or glaciers. I think it was, but I don't recall glaciers being a property of this, and it doesn't. I don't know why that is so cold. But anyway, I'm going to take advantage of it. I've got vacuum, as I mentioned, protecting myself from it, and I'm actually probably going to be able to run the metal refinery for a lot longer than in normal. And not only that, the glass production. So I'm actually going to move this over here. I realized I made a little boo boo. That sweeper is grabbing eggs that are in the egg storage room, which is not good. So if I put it over here, it can't reach the eggs in the storage room. Okay, little bit of hiccup there, but just moving it over is going to make all the difference for me. I'm just putting in some additional lights. So it's going to be some dupe sensors with a light right next to it. So whenever a rancher is in there, they'll be able to do their grooming in the light, allowing them to operate a little bit quicker. I also realize that I've got to close off some of these zones with some of the power tiles and mesh tiles potentially. All right, some shine bugs. I don't really care about those in the short term. But anyway, I got to get those eggs out of there. Once that automation system exists, I won't have to at least manually look after that, because it's quite an annoying process to always be watching all these different stables. But eventually, I won't have to do that. In the other world, as I mentioned early on, I don't have to worry about that at all, because I have a conveyor loader set up such that it removes all eggs from any of the stables. But not so in this world. If I want that to happen here, I have to actually have automation to make that happen nicely. And that's quite okay, because I'm quite okay with that, because I've got a metal refinery, so I'm efficiently turning metal ore into metal instead of putting it through the rock crusher. Okay, so you can see that I've hunted some Sweetles, 2 of them. That's going to be enough food for the 4 dupes. So I put under the resources the number of barbecue calories that I have, so I can watch that. So once that gets low, I know that I need to attack some Sweetles, if I have them. Otherwise, I'll probably be forced to use the mushing machine to make dirt into food. And every time I do that, of course, I'm losing the ability to up my score on the amount of meat that I eat. Alright, so just running some power over on this stables, so that ultimately when I put automation over here, the power will already exist. Okay, I'm also going to think about bringing one of the dupes from the other world over. I already have that. Yeah, I already have them here, and they must have been sleeping on the ground. So let's fix that. Let's create a number of beds so that I've got an excess amount of beds as I get additional dupes over here. Hopefully, I don't have dupes sleeping on the ground for any amount of time. Also notice a little bit of hydrogen. That's why I built the door on the other side to hopefully have that hydrogen over there. Get out of that room. And more mess tables there so that additional dupes have a place to eat. I think the last thing that I'm going to do in this episode, if I have time before the end of cycle 50, is to build a system to deal with the carbon dioxide. So I've got a system to deal with hydrogen on the top, but I have no system to deal with the carbon dioxide. I'm actually even going to extend the insulation down a little bit. I'm a bit worried about this setup over here because of this freezing zone. I'm going to have water go through some of the pipes. It'll be insulated. But as that slowly turns through the system dealing with the carbon dioxide, it is going to risk freezing those pipes. So I'm actually going to have a liquid reservoir to store some water in this overall setup. So actually thinking about this, I think that's a bad spot to put it because let's go a little bit further away from the super freezing zone so that I'm not breaking pipes and wasting materials. I'm going to build it over here instead. It's going to be the same setup. So I'm going to have the carbon skimmer. I'm going to put that far over on the left. So as carbon dioxide falls down, it will nullify it here. And that's going to turn water into polluted water. But then I'm going to have a water sieve, turn polluted water to regular water. And then I'll store a little bit of water in this liquid reservoir. And it'll just go in a circuit, a water cycle all around, converting polluted water to water and back again. Just allowing me to run that carbon dioxide skimmer so that I can get rid of carbon dioxide. Okay, and I'll need to fill that in with a little bit of water just to kickstart that off. Cycle 50. This will be the last one for this episode. A little bit of additional food. That's a good thing because I don't quite have enough sweetle eggs to feed my dupes every single day. I'm able to start consuming meat, but not consistently. Not consistently every single cycle. Now I've got 5 dupes here, which means I'm actually able to consume a little bit more meat if I have it. Unfortunately, the hatches and the pips still have to go in the stables. I'm waiting for those stables to get filled before I start converting them into meat. But there will be a point where pips and hatches will be fair game for food, assuming that there doesn't need to be anything replaced. So I can see the carbon dioxide skimmer is running. Water and polluted water is going through that system, so I no longer have to worry about carbon dioxide building up in this space, which is a positive development. The rest of the time, I'm going to start producing or digging out a spot for an additional hatch, or I keep saying hatch, the stable. This is going to be for the stone hatches going forward over there. And I might need to either move that water or decide to have another spot for the smooth hatches. But I'll worry about that in the next episode. Okay, well, let's just have a look over in this world, and everything looks good there. And look at how many calories we've eaten. 65,000. And I'm halfway through it. Okay, let's talk about this. 65,000 calories on cycle 50. That may not seem like a lot because I have made it halfway through to 100. I need to eat 400,000. But now that I'm producing a lot more meat, getting some from the sweetles, but eventually I'll be able to start getting them from the pips and the hatches. And that'll put me in a situation where I'm able to consume meat almost every single cycle, and probably at some point every single cycle, and even get more dupes going forward, so I'm consuming more than just 5,000 calories as I could at the moment with my 5 dupes that are over there. So this is looking really good. I think possibly, we'll see, I don't know how it's going to pan out. I might be able to get it in this next episode. If not, then very early on in the next episode after that. But if you want to see how that all turns out, like, subscribe, and see you in the next episode.